Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and get things rolling here. I think a couple of people are still trickling in, but we'll go ahead and get things started. So thanks so much for tuning in today to learn more about Jira Service Desk. My name is Will Howard McKinney. I'm on the Jira Service Desk team here at Atlassian, and I'll be your tour guide for today's webinar. Over the next 60 minutes or so, we'll be covering several of the features and functions that I think you'll find helpful as you're evaluating Jira Service Desk, and which makes Jira Service Desk a great solution really for just about any service team. So let me start with a little bit of context, as some folks attending today likely have different levels of familiarity with Jira. Jira is a platform that runs a couple of different Atlassian applications: Jira Software, Jira Core, and of course Jira Service Desk. Those three tools are designed for different types of teams, but they're all deployed on the same platform and allow your development teams, your business teams, and your service teams to work together seamlessly in one platform using one user management system. It also allows you to license users only in the specific flavors of Jira that they need to work in, but it still allows for tons of back and forth between users in the various products. While we discuss some of the integration benefits here today, this webinar is focused primarily on Jira Service Desk and how service teams can benefit from using it. Now, also in the session today, you'll hear me talk about agents, and you'll hear me talk about customers. Those are very specific roles in Jira Service Desk. Agents are what you pay for. They are your licensed support staff who receive help requests. Customers are anyone submitting help requests to your agents. Customers can submit help requests at absolutely no cost. So that's very important. I'll say that again. Customers are free in Jira Service Desk. You only pay for your agents. A customer can be an external user reporting a bug or asking a billing question, or they can be an internal employee requesting service from an IT team, just to give you a couple of examples. Again, the most important thing to remember about customers is they are free and they are unlimited in Jira Service Desk. Jira Service Desk is ITIL certified by Pink Verify for several ITIL services that are most important to service teams. So service request fulfillment, incident management, problem management, and change management. So we give you that head start if you're headed down the ITIL path. If you have a completely different approach to your structure, the great thing about Jira Service Desk is that it's very adaptable to the needs of your teams, whether you're a small startup or a large enterprise. It has tons of flexibility, tons of configuration options, and it grows and adapts with you and your team as your needs change. So how much is it? I mentioned before that agents are the only thing you pay for. Well, how much are those agents going to cost you? I think if you compare us to other service desk providers, you will find us quite competitive from a pricing structure. Jira Service Desk in the cloud, which is what we'll be demonstrating in the webinar today, we're using an Atlassian hosted cloud version of Jira Service Desk, is $10 per month for up to 3 agents. Beyond 3 agents, we implement a per-user pricing structure starting at $20 per agent per month. So beyond 15 agents, the price per agent comes down on average. So the more agents you use, the less each individual agent costs you on average. You can visit the Jira Service Desk pricing link over on the right side to get more details, including a calculator where you can get specific details based on your estimated team size. Evaluations of our cloud products are free for 7 days, no credit card required, and again, that's the platform that we're going to be using in the webinar today. We also do offer 2 on-premise deployment options, one that we call server, and the other we refer to as data center, which can be evaluated free for 30 days if you'd rather host the product on your own hardware. So a server version of our product is going to be hosted on a single server on your framework. Data center is a multi-server deployment that is really intended for our larger kind of enterprise level customers for whom our products are mission critical. So data center offers active to active rollover in case of a failure. It offers load balancing between multiple nodes, and it offers several other features to minimize downtime for larger enterprise organizations. And you're welcome to try those as well if that is more suitable to your needs. All Jira products come fully featured regardless of your team size. So we do not charge you for features. We only charge you for users. And that's true of all of our Jira products. The only exception to this is when you want to add a knowledge base component to Jira Service Desk. And again, for some context, before we built Jira Service Desk, we had an existing product called Confluence that is a great tool for planning, for collaboration, for sharing knowledge, for storing meeting notes, for storing documents. And instead of reinventing the wheel, we paired Confluence with Jira Service Desk to give knowledge-based features from Confluence. So just like in Jira Service Desk, you only need to license your agents, or in other words, your content managers, people authoring help articles. Those are the only people you need to license in Confluence if you're adding knowledge-based functionality. Customers, just like in Jira Service Desk, are free in Confluence. They can access that content and browse that content, read that content, and find self-help solutions at absolutely no additional cost. Now, one last item before we jump in. I want to go over a couple of logistics for the session today. I encourage you, if a question comes up during the presentation, please go ahead and post that in our Q&A section. We have product specialists on the session today available to answer those questions live for you during the demo. And if time allows, at the end, we'll take a couple of questions as well from that Q&A submission panel, so please go ahead and post your questions there as they come up throughout the session. We do have a pretty packed agenda today, but I will try and at least address one or two of those questions as we get to the end of the session. We also have some great resources you can access right here from the webinar interface. So we've got a Getting Started guide, we have some frequently asked questions about Jira Service Desk, and then some technical documentation for the product as well. So go ahead and take a look at those either now or after the session today. Feel free to use those to supplement your evaluation. They should be quite helpful. I also want to remind you that if you have not started an evaluation yet, you've come to a great place for that as well. So this button to the right here takes you to a page where you can go ahead and sign up and start using it for free. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk quickly about what we'll be going over today. First, we'll walk through Jira Service Desk from the customer point of view. So we'll look at the portal, we'll look at submitting requests over email, we'll look at how to submit requests, how to see their status, and generally how customers interact with issues, how they can transition issues, how they can share issues with other people, and just get an understanding of how customers are going to be interacting with your service desk. Next, we'll go ahead and show you the agent point of view. So how queues are built and arranged, how SLAs work, incident change and service management requests, how to use a knowledge base with Jira Service Desk effectively, and generally how Jira Service Desk helps your agents get more work done. Then we'll shift over to focus on some features that are specific to organizations already using Jira software. So I mentioned some of those integration benefits before. We'll talk a little bit about how Jira Service Desk can be a really great addition to teams that are already using Jira software, either for your development teams, your product teams, even your IT teams in some cases. And finally, we'll finish by walking through features that managers and admins care most about: reporting, setup, project configurations, various settings in Jira Service Desk that are important to get started. So that is our agenda for the webinar today. Again, feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along, and our product experts will answer them as they come in. So let's go ahead and get started and jump right into the customer view. The self-service customer portal is where your customers or your employees can come to find help, submit requests, check on requests that are in progress, check on requests that have been previously closed. The customer portal is broken down into three parts. So we've got the self-service knowledge base, we've got the request catalog, and we've got My Issues. I'll explain quickly the structure of how Jira Service Desk is set up. So first, you have your Help Center, which is the main portal that customers will use to find what they need. Effectively, it's your portal of portals, so to speak. So within your Help Center, you'll have different help desks, which equate to your projects in Jira Service Desk. Some examples would be a project for your IT team, a project for a facilities team, for human resources, for finance. With Jira Service Desk, you can create separate Service Desk projects for all of your Service Desk teams. They can build and configure them to their specific needs, but they're all under one umbrella, making it easy for your customers, easy for your employees to reach the team that they need to reach. And within those help desks, you'll set up request catalogs with things like hardware requests, software requests, connecting to a VPN, questions about vacation, PTO for your human resources team. That can all change from project to project. So that's the structure, and you can customize each along the way. Real quick as well, you can make as many projects as you want in Jira Service Desk, again, at no additional cost. Agents are the only thing you pay for in Jira Service Desk. And if you have agents working in multiple projects, that one agent in multiple projects will still only cost you one agent license. So you're not doubled up for agents working in multiple places. You can see that this Help Center is nicely branded, nicely customized, and you can do the same thing with yours. You can easily customize your own by adding an image, by adding a banner, a logo, changing the colors, creating a welcome message. There's various call to actions you can add, announcements you can make. So you have several customization options at the Help Center level and at the portal level to make these projects unique and work for the customer base that they're targeting. So back to the Help Center, if you have Confluence, customers can search for relevant articles among many different service desks. So you can have multiple support teams responding to requests in separate queues, but for the customer, it's all in a single place. Remember, the Help Center is a portal of portals. So when you're on the Help Center, assuming that the customer has proper access to those various projects within the Help Center, they'll be able to see articles from all of those different projects that they have access to in the Help Center. If you don't have Confluence integrated, everything will be exactly the same, except customers won't be able to search for articles. They'll still be able to search here, though, for the type of support they need to make sure that they reach the right team that can service their request. Customers can also submit requests via email, and those will go right into your agent's queues. Each individual project in Jira Service Desk can have a unique email address associated with it to make sure that they are routed to the proper service team. So for example, you could have a service desk for technical support, one for feature requests, one for billing and licensing, one for bug reports, and so on and so forth. So I can start typing in my problem here. Let's say I'm your customer and I'm having trouble downloading your mobile app and I need help troubleshooting my problem. I can start typing my issue right in the Help Center here and click on a relevant article. And next time I come back to this service desk, similar articles will show automatically with the machine learning functionality that we've built into search. So it actually gets smarter as your customers use it, giving better and more accurate info based on actual feedback from your customers who are using it. But let's say I haven't found an article that helps me, but I see that there's a technical support service desk. So let's go ahead and check that out. Here I can enter in all of the details of my issue. And by the way, you can customize these field names to be whatever you want. So you can collect all of the information you need from the customer and spend less time going back and forth with them. You can make fields optional or required or hidden with a preset value, and that all helps with queue routing and making sure that issues are in the right place. So on the right side here are a bunch of knowledge base articles that might help me solve my problem in case I missed it before. It presents the self-help articles to me persistently throughout the experience, again, to try and mitigate those incoming contacts. And once the request is submitted, I'll receive an email confirmation letting me know that the team has received my request. Additional work on the ticket can also trigger emails when an agent replies, for example, or when other edits or updates to the issue have been made. And you can control what actions trigger those email notifications. You can also control what those email notifications say. So you can brand them, you can change the text, you can turn them off and on for various triggers. There's a whole bunch of different options you can configure so you're not overwhelming your customers with a whole bunch of email spam every time they open a ticket with you, but also make sure that they get the information that they need. So I'll bring up a great feature called customer organization, since we're kind of talking about the customer experience right now. In some cases, you might be an organization that does client work, which is really a group of people who need to submit requests to you and see each other's requests. So Jira Service Desk has this feature called customer organizations, where you can group your customers, and customers in those groups can share issues with one another, and those issues will be accessible to them in the portal. They'll be able to look at them in a separate section under My Issues. It'll show issues that are shared with an organization that you're a part of, and you can parse issues that have been shared with an organization that you're a part of. Your admin can set those up in project settings so you can track customer data by organization, which is a super powerful feature. I also want to show you another great feature for external support. So you can embed a widget directly onto your site, and this widget will pop up when a customer clicks on this question mark button. They can enter their request right here in context without having to navigate away from your support site or your website or wherever they were encountering the problem. Providing delightful customer service is expected these days, so this feature is extremely important for providing that next level of service to your customers. And just to note, you can customize the colors, the fields, the field names here, just like you would be able to on your regular portal. All right, so those are the basics of the customer view and the portal. In this example, we are, of course, connected to Confluence as the knowledge base, which needs to be maintained and updated regularly by your team so that customers always have relevant and accurate information at their fingertips. So moving on to the next section, I know I can't cover everything in every use case, so please continue to ask your questions in the chat, and we'll get those answered for you. But right now, let's move on to take a look at the agent side of things. Now I'm going to log in as Alana. Alana works on the Service Desk team as part of IT, both frontline and back office. So we'll just say that that's a pretty small team at her organization, so they're filling multiple roles. And I just want to walk you through what she sees and how Jira Service Desk looks from her point of view to help keep her on top of what's most important. On the left-hand side here, you'll see the agent queues. Queues are really important in that they're allowing me to organize the work as a team and make us more effective because we can see all of the data we need right here. So regardless of which channel a request comes through, it's all populated in this one place for agents to see. Queues use something called Jira Query Language, which is a very powerful component of Jira that lets you query against really just about any criteria present in an issue. And that includes custom fields as well. So you can build queues to capture all unassigned issues, for example, using JQL to look for all issues that are unassigned. You can have another queue that will use JQL to capture all issues of a certain request type. Yet another one that looks at the content of a specific field, perhaps to capture issues that have been escalated to a higher tier agent. You could add a custom field called escalate, add some options there, and then use JQL to build a queue to capture issues where that field has been toggled to, a tier 2 agent or a tier 3 agent, for example. Here are all the currently unassigned issues in this project. It's quickly allowing me to find those requests, and then everything that's most important is sorted to the top. We don't have anything that's exceeding SLA yet, which is good for our team, good for Alana, but we might see some of those in a little while here. We can see this clock is ticking down. This top one seems like a high priority. There's an issue with the billing system, so I'll go ahead and check this one out. But the one I need to work on right now is actually the VPN request, because Jennifer has just sent me a chat asking about it. Saying, hey, can you help me out? I have a really tough deadline here, and I'm working from home. I can't get on the VPN. I'll mention real quick that when those tickets come through from those kind of taps on the shoulder, right? Somebody hits you up in your instant messenger program or just walks up to your team, you can use Jira Service Desk to raise an issue on their behalf. So you can still track those issues that come in from channels that are not the portal, that are not email, where it's literally just somebody come up and saying, hey, can you help me? You can raise an issue on the behalf of that customer so that you can still use Jira Service Desk to track it. They can still access that issue from the portal, and they can still use Jira Service Desk to get that service, even if they ask you in person. So here's the request with all of the details. It looks like somebody moved it up to critical, and I can take a look at the workflow to see where we're at. It's telling me I haven't responded to her, so it's still in a waiting for support status. I can also see who requested it and what SLAs are attached. The 4 SLAs that you see here are default SLAs that Jira Service Desk provides you out of the box, but you can customize these for your own teams. They're super easy to set up, and we'll talk more about SLAs further along in the demo. The 2 that we're going to focus on are time to first response. So I have 4 hours to initially reply to this ticket, and the second one is time to resolution, which gives me 24 hours to see this ticket through to completion. As the clock ticks down, they'll start to change color, and based on some automation rules we've set up, Jira Service Desk can trigger notifications as the SLAs get close to breach. So I'm going to go ahead and click Assign to Me so that I can work on this request, or Alana, technically, can work on this request. I'm reading through it, and I see that Jennifer is having some connectivity issues with the VPN. One thing you're going to notice below the attachment section here is this knowledge section. This section will show public-facing articles that you can share with the customer with a click. A knowledge base is also extremely valuable when your agents are trying to answer questions. So it not only services your customers on the portal, but it gives your agents quick and easy responses, almost like a canned response library. It's placed right here in the ticket so they can resolve the issue as fast as possible. So it detects that this article might be related to this issue. It suggests the article to the agent, just like it suggests it to the customer on the portal, and it automatically picks the most relevant articles. I'm also seeing here VPN access for employee, troubleshooting AnyConnect, and Wi-Fi. So let's go ahead and search for VPN. I'm thinking that she probably needs to update her client. That's probably what it is, and we could open this up. This looks like it might actually solve it. So this will show her how to reinstall or update her VPN client. And we'll go ahead and share this article as a comment. I'll just say, "Hi, Jennifer," and then go ahead and copy and paste some information into the ticket as well. And then, all right, the comment goes out. Share with customer. She just got an update in her email, and the status is also in the portal for her, is waiting for customer now. She'll be able to click on this knowledge base article and a link in her response. And if we were able to carry this request forward, we would actually see that this solves her issue, and we'd double click and then resolve it. This is a great example of how knowledge on the agent side is helping us quickly solve and address issues, in addition to giving people self-help solutions directly on the portal. These knowledge articles can be external, or they might have a little red mark here indicating that they are locked and that it's only for our internal team to see. So you have full control over who can and cannot access your knowledge base articles directly. So let's go back out here to our queues. I want to show you one other request that we have here. I keep seeing this type of request come in, and actually Jennifer asked about this one as well. I need help sharing my Google Calendar with the engineering team. So let's just go ahead and take care of this one as well while we're at it. So I have an article here from Google's support, and I can share that link with her and say, here, go ahead and follow these instructions. This is how you share your Google Calendar out. But this link is something that I find myself pasting into tickets pretty regularly because I get this request a lot for some reason. So what we want to do now is we want to publish this issue, this request, as a knowledge base article to make our lives easier. So I want to turn this into a knowledge article because then I can deflect those requests from coming in the first place, and I can mitigate volume. And I can make it easier for end users to immediately find what they're looking for rather than having to wait for an agent to respond. It also lets my agents focus more on the types of problems that require their critical thinking and their brain power. You know, we hire people for their skills, not to kind of go through these kind of rote processes that people can typically solve on their own. So I'm going to click Create a Knowledge Article, and then I'm going to change the title of this. So Share Google Calendar with your team. And it also has a template of how to. So I'll go ahead and click Create, and then it brings me into this template. Now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go over here and kind of copy paste something that I have prepared for this demo. So I'm not going to write a whole big article here in front of you during the session. I'm just using this to show you kind of how this article creation feature works. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this in. And now you're probably going to link out to what Google has on their website. So that way you're getting the most current information. There might be a variation in instructions. They might change their interface, over the years, and you want to make sure that you're linking to Google's docs and not to something that's local to your knowledge base. In case Google's information changes, you want them to have access to the most accurate information. But what I wanted to show you is, I can do all the formatting. And the other thing here is that it's going to link to the original issue. So from a support side, it really helps me measure the usage of the article, and it helps me understand where this article came from originally. So I'll go ahead and save it. And then we're going to do one last thing here, which is to make sure that I'm putting a label on this article for Google Calendar. So let me go ahead and add that. There we go. And what does this look like from the end user perspective? So let's go back over here to this view, and we'll go into the portal. And we'll type Share Google Calendar with Team. And you can see now that it's live and it's available just like that, instantaneously. And now anybody that comes to your portal and is searching for how to share your Google Calendar with their team is going to find this article at the ready, up in front, and hopefully help them solve the challenge that they were having without ever having to contact your agents. So that was a very quick example, but I just wanted you to see how easy it is to publish knowledge base articles directly from your incoming Jira Service Desk issues. So if you ever have anything that comes through more than a handful of times, make a knowledge base article for it, mitigate those incoming issues, and free your team up to focus on things that actually require their attention. As we're getting ready now to move on to the next section, I just want to remind everyone again to keep posting your questions in the chat. I'm seeing some great questions come through that the team is answering as we're going along. Please keep those coming. And let's go ahead and move on and talk about some features that are really useful for teams that may also be using Jira software, either with their product team or their development team, operations, or even IT. So we'll use an incident management issue as an example to show you some of these very useful features. So focusing now on how Jira software and Jira Service Desk work so well together, let's pretend that we just had a major outage and we received some events that were coming in from our monitoring tools. They might come in from email from somebody who actually noticed a problem, or they might come in from API for Jira Service Desk, which is open. You can have monitoring systems trigger issues to create it in Jira Service Desk to parse that information into workable tickets. So I'm seeing the database online storage issue here. I've been getting alerts for the last 30 minutes or so. So it looks like something's going on with the database. I also noticed the original request is coming from Vincent. So he's mentioning that the web store is offline and customers can't do anything. So that's a pretty critical outage. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on this one because this is my area of expertise. I'll go ahead and assign it to myself. Now, the great thing about Jira Service Desk being built on the same platform as Jira software is that they work seamlessly together right out of the box. So let's create a linked issue here from within Jira Service Desk and show how it can land directly into a Jira software project, which is the power of the two of them being on the same platform. So back to our example, I need Max to come in here because he is the developer in Jira software and I need his help. So I'll say @Max to mention him, need your help with this issue. So what I'm going to do here, so Max comes in. He got the notification, he can open this ticket, and now we can start actually working together on this request in a way that it's very collaborative. We can communicate with one another. His Jira software issue has a built-in link to my Jira Service Desk issue and vice versa, so both of us have quick and easy access to the corresponding issue. We can communicate in Jira, we can communicate in Stride, or we can communicate in some other kind of platform that we're using, but we can work together to solve this. Now, another really powerful thing that we can do is set up automation rules around Jira Service Desk and Jira software. Automation is a very powerful feature in Jira Service Desk, and what it does is it uses very simple when, if, then logic to trigger actions based on specific criteria. So, for example, we can create an automation rule that says when a linked issue is transitioned, if the linked issue matches status done, then add a comment and transition the issue to respond to customer. So you can imagine if you have a big incident like this and your customers can't buy things, you might get several reports about that. You might get several different reports from your monitoring tools. You might get several reports from actual end users who are having an issue. You might get reports from other internal people who have noticed the problem. And what you can do is you can link every single one of those Jira Service Desk issues that come in to that single Jira software issue. And when that Jira software issue is transitioned to done, it will trigger an update to all of the Jira Service Desk issues that you have linked to it. So it will transition it to waiting for customer and send it back to the customer. And it will also add a comment for the customer saying this issue has been resolved. Please let us know if you continue to experience any difficulty or whatever you want the comment to say. So that is a tremendous time saver for your team. And it also allows for better collaboration between software and support teams when they're swarming around incidents and problems. We'll talk more about automation further on in the admin section, but I just wanted to mention it here because when you have a major outage and you get a million issues coming in about a single incident, that's one example of a circumstance when automation is incredibly powerful. So there's a lot more that we can talk about between the integration between Jira Software and Jira Service Desk, but for the sake of time, I do have to move on. But I just wanted you to understand that we built both of these products to work together seamlessly and to bridge the gaps that historically have existed between support teams and development teams and product teams, etc. And it lets them work together in a very collaborative way, again, entirely in one interface. And other tools, disparate tools, just simply can't do that without a lot of customization, configuration, etc. So being able to share information and get those insights in real time between teams is really, really critical. One other thing that's very valuable in the example we just discussed, Max is only licensed in Jira Software, so he does not consume a paid Jira Service Desk license. He can still communicate with the Service Desk agent without having to be paid for as a Jira Service Desk agent. He only consumes the license in Jira Software. But if for some reason Max needs to communicate with that initial reporter, that initial customer, you can do that, and you still don't have to pay for Max as a Jira Service Desk agent. Remember, customers are always free, and customers can be a part of your company or they cannot be a part of your company. So it's easy to add Max as a customer to this ticket, giving him portal access to the ticket where he can add comments that the reporter/customer can see, and the two of them can communicate through the portal view of that ticket. All right, so I really could go on and on about the integration benefits between Jira Software and Jira Service Desk, but I do want to make sure we have time to talk about some features and functions that managers and project administrators are going to want to know. So let's quickly move on through this next section about reporting. And again, keep those questions coming in through the Q&A interface. All right, so we're going to spend really just a few minutes on the manager aspect of this, because when managers look at their team's service desk, they need kind of a bigger picture view of how they're performing. So first, I want to show you the dashboard for IT managers. And here I have the ability to create dashboards that would bring together different IT projects. So it gives me a broader view of potentially multiple projects and multiple teams' performance. So things like, what are the most important issues that are out there? How are we performing overall? And there are a couple of different ways that you can chart that out. If you use Jira Software, it'll probably look pretty familiar to you. The dashboard component is very similar. It's a platform feature that is shared by Jira Service Desk and by Jira Software and Jira Core. And it just makes it a lot easier to consume your reports and your data. So diving into these reports a little bit, we've got some great real-time reports that come prepackaged with all of your Jira Service Desk projects, and you can also build and configure your own reports to dive into the data that you need to that's relevant for your team. So the first one that we'll look at here is Service Level Agreement Goals, or SLA goals. And you can see how we're doing in the 7-day rolling period. And obviously, they're not that great for the sample data that I've put in here. So you're getting an idea of the SLA you put in place for this project and the different types of criteria, because obviously time and resolution are very different for incident requests and for service requests. Now, if we look at the time to resolution report, time to resolution is a different SLA, and it tells you how quickly your team not only is responding to tickets, but how quickly they are actually resolving those tickets. So from open to close, and how you're trending there. And this next report will show you how much work each of your team members has going on. So we've got some issues here that are obviously exceeding their SLA. Alana's having a pretty rough day. Looks like Chris is having a pretty rough day as well. So this is an example of just a quick snapshot you can get to find out what your agents are working on. Now, another really important metric for any service team is customer satisfaction, right? How well is your team providing service, and how happy are the people that are receiving service? When a request closes, you can automatically send a satisfaction survey, which is very, very easy to configure. It's a very simple survey, but it's super important. All it asks is for a star rating, 1 to 5, and it also has an open comment field. So this lets you as a manager keep your finger on the pulse of customer satisfaction and how well your team is providing service to your customers and your reporters. Now, if we look at resolved requests, here you can see the number of requests resolved from those knowledge base articles that we talked before. So this is really, really helpful to know which articles are being impactful, which aren't, and how much time they're saving your team by deflecting tickets from the portal. So if you remember back that Google Calendar article that we created, ideally, after you created that, you would notice the number of those tickets coming down, and you would see the number here on this report tick up, indicating every time that this article deflected a ticket and people were able to learn on their own how to share their Google Calendar. Now, these are the ones that come stock pre-built with a Jira Service Desk project when you create a new project in the platform, but you can create custom reports and slice and dice the data to fit your needs. Reports use Jira query language. Remember, I mentioned JQL, Jira query language, before when discussing queues. JQL is used in many, many places throughout the Jira platform, including reports, queues, service level agreements, automation rules, just general issue searches. If you're just searching for particular issues in your Jira instance, it's ever present all across the Jira platform, and it's used in a lot of different areas. So that is an admittedly pretty brief view of the manager aspect, but I wanted to focus on reporting and to understand what managers could access and how easy it was for them to look at data after it's set up to make things readily available for them so that they can understand the health of their teams. So we're going to go ahead and press on at this point and talk about administration of projects and various settings, how to configure the project from an administrator point of view. So just to quickly reiterate the structure of how Jira Service Desk works, first you have your Help Center, which, as we mentioned, is the main kind of portal of portals that your customers or employees will use in order to find the specific type of help that they need. There isn't really a back-end version of the Help Center. I mean, you can certainly configure it and customize it, but it's only visible to your customers. It's really a landing page almost, where they can find the specific type of service that they need to request. Within your Help Center is where all your projects or portals can be searched and navigated by your customers. Now remember, customers will only see portals that you've given them access to, and it is possible to have portals that certain customers won't be able to access. So within the Help Center, you have all your Service Desk projects. Within those projects, you'll set up request catalogs unique to each of them. So you have the Help Center. Within that, you have an IT project, maybe an HR project, maybe a customer support project, and so on and so on and so on. Within that IT project, you might have request types like hardware requests, software requests, systems access, and so on. Whereas in the HR project, you might have request types like vacation requests or request for tax documents or new hire setup, things of that nature. So that's the structure, and you can customize each element of it along the way. You can customize your Help Center, your projects, and your individual request types within those projects. So as far as the Help Center goes, let's talk about branding and setting it up, because that's your main portal. And as a project admin, you can easily brand your Help Center with a custom name, with a welcome message, with a logo, with a color scheme, banner photos. There's a whole slew of options for customizing your Help Center. Also, that your portal matches your brand and the level of service you want to provide. And you can do that by going to Project Settings and then Portal Settings, and then click View and Customize the look and feel of your Help Center here. You can also further brand your individual Service Desk projects with a logo and a welcome message at the top and relevant announcements you want to broadcast to visitors. Remember, in that incident example we had before, maybe we want to add an announcement there saying that this is a known issue and we don't need any more reports coming in. Another really helpful way to customize your Help Center and your individual projects is to set them up in different languages that your customers might speak. So at the project level, you can add languages along with translations for all elements of a portal. And users who have that language selected on their user profile should see the content presented to them in that language. And after you've added a language to a project, the Help Center will also allow you to select those languages from the View and Customize section that we saw just a second ago. You can translate your customer portal. You can translate your request types, your notifications, your email templates, really just about anything to present to people in the language that they speak. So now I'm going to move down here to request types. So think about your customer portal when you're setting these up. This is your request catalog. Request types are what we use to define those items within the catalog. So you can see the different request types. You can see how they're grouped. You can see a description of them. So let's go ahead and walk through an example here. So we don't have one right now for mobile request. So let's go ahead and create a request type for requesting a mobile device. We'll put this under common requests, and we'll go ahead and add it. And there we go. Now we see that it is there. So let's go ahead and change the icon real quick as well. Let's just make it this little mobile phone icon. You'll notice we give you several stock icons, but you can upload your own if you prefer. Again, just deepening your branding options if your company has a style guide. And now we'll go ahead and change the fields that we want to include in this request type. So by default, it just includes summary, but we know that that is not everything that we're going to need to service this request. So let's add a description field. Let's add an attachment field, and I'm going to put a label as well, and I'll explain why in a minute. And finally, approvers and due date. So a quick note about request types. This gets into the weeds a little bit, but request types are the customer-facing version of an issue type. So back to Jira basics, projects consist of issue types, and you define what fields are available to those issue types. When you make a corresponding request type, all of the fields available that you can choose to present to the customer on the request type on the portal are pulled from the fields that exist in that mapped issue type. So if you're ever having trouble finding a field to add, it's likely that you need to change the issue type that the request type maps to, or simply add that field to the issue type that the request type maps to so that it becomes an available option. So I've added this attachment field because we want the employee to submit a specification sheet so that we make sure we get them the proper device. And we'll go ahead and make this required. I'm also going to add some text here to help the customer. So let's just add, please build the device on the vendor's website according to your desired specifications and attach a screenshot here. This will just help them know what they need to add so that we can service their request as effectively as possible. Now, lastly, you can imagine that sometimes you may want to present the customer with something different than simply attachment, right? So we have the help text, of course, that we just talked about, but maybe we want to make this more clear to our service requester. So we can change how this field displays on the portal by clicking here and typing in a new value. So instead of attachment, which is quite vague and generic, let's call this one phone requirements. So next, I'm going to make this label field hidden from the help seeker, and I'm going to add a preset value here for mobile request. Now, when this issue is created, that label will be added automatically, and this info will only be visible to the agent. So we're going to hide this because maybe we have some special routing that we want to do, or maybe we have a certain queue that we want it to parse into, and we can do that when we have that label added. Remember Jira query language that we talked about before? When you build your queues, you can query against labels or really a lot of other criteria, but this is a quick and easy way to get a label added to an issue so that you can aggregate them quickly and effectively. So we have a hidden label field in addition to the attachments field, which we've renamed for clarity. And then the last thing, let's say I want to have these mobile device requests approved by a manager. So I've added this approvers field. And again, I'll change how it displays to be clear. So let's just call this who is your manager. And we will make this required as well. So you're seeing how we can put this in language that makes the most sense to the end user. And in really just a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, we have a brand new service request ready to go. Next up, let's talk about approval workflow. So I just mentioned that we want a manager to approve those mobile device requests. Some requests might need approval before your team can work on them. So an IT manager might need to approve an addition of somebody to a specific system because it's a sensitive system, for example. One important thing to know about approvers in Jira Service Desk is you do not need a license to be an approver. So what that means is that, of course, your licensed Jira Service Desk agents can, of course, be approvers. If you use another version of Jira, like Jira software, those users can also be approvers without requiring a Service Desk license. And even your customers can be added as approvers without requiring a Service Desk license, which is really handy if you're doing things like client work and you need your client to approve something before it moves along through a workflow. So you can also set up more than one approver, and then you can build thresholds, right? You can send it to maybe 5 people and then require all 5 of those people to approve, or only 1 of them, or only 3 of them. You have several different options on that. So here is how approvals fit into the request workflow. A service requester sends in a request, either via email or through the portal. And when the request transitions to a status that needs approval, the approver is notified that there is something that is pending their approval. So the manager, or whoever the designated approver is, clicks the notification, and they are taken to a portal view of the ticket. They can also go directly to the portal, and they can look at issues that are pending their approval right there. So they don't have to use the notification, but it's pretty handy to have that. Now, depending on if the request is approved or denied, the issue will then move into the corresponding status for that decision, and the customer will be notified. So again, the first thing we want to do is choose who the approver is going to be. So you can have customers choose approvers from a list, or you can hide the field and send it to a preset list of approvers. So for example, in the following screenshot, the customer can search for their manager in this list. So to do this, you add a user picker field. All approvers use a user picker field in Jira. Now, next we're going to choose where in the workflow the request needs approval. So in the following workflow, you can see that the request goes to the approvers immediately after it's created. So it goes through this create transition, it lands on this needs approval status, and you can see that there is already an add approval option here selected. So that's a little bit about approvals. It's pretty handy if you want, somebody to sign off on something before completing a service request. Just adds that extra level of accountability. Moving on down the list here, though, let's go ahead and talk about satisfaction settings. So in satisfaction settings, you can turn on the satisfaction survey. This is a pretty simple survey. It's a 5-star rating with an option to add a comment. And this is where your service requesters, report back on the service that they received from your agents. And then the results of that are populated into a report that you can run or that you can look at to gauge the kind of health and the service that your team is providing. So email requests. We absolutely have the ability to take inbound email requests from any email alias that you want. When you're using cloud, Jira will actually provide each Service Desk project with a default email address, but you can also configure an existing inbox to parse into issues in Jira Service Desk as well. So you set that up here. Next is the email notification customization. So under customer notifications in your project settings, you can edit these notifications in a wide number of ways. So you can toggle them on or off, for example, so you can choose which triggers should or should not send notifications to your customers. You can update the subject line, the body, and you can even edit them using HTML or CSS so that you can brand them more deeply or just make them fancier if you want to. Next, linking your knowledge base. So in terms of knowledge base, we have the ability to point a Service Desk project to a very specific collection of content in Confluence. Now, in Confluence terms, we refer to that as a space. A space is simply a collection of related content, and it consists of pages, which is where that content is actually saved and stored. So again, Confluence organizes pages into spaces. Now, you can come in and choose which Confluence space you want to connect your Service Desk project to. And you really should invest time in creating high-quality content here, and use the labels and use all these options here to really drive that self-help, self-service ticket mitigation. Moving on to SLAs, they are pretty simple and easy to set up in Jira Service Desk, and we have a couple of them out of the box that we provide as a good starting point for you. So let's look at time to response and time to resolution. let's look at time to resolution first, because there's a little bit of variance here that we can explore. So you need to figure out when it should start, when it should pause, and when it should stop, and when the SLA should be satisfied or met. And then within that, there are different goals. So let's say you want your service level agreement to start when the issue is created, right? Pretty straightforward. You want it to pause if the employee has to chase something down internally. Let's say you have a waiting on internal status in your workflow. When an agent transitions an issue to that waiting for internal status, that SLA clock is going to pause. And then when it stops is when the issue enters a closed status, or when a resolution is set, or any other kind of criteria that indicates that this issue has been resolved. Now, within those start, pause, stop criteria, you can apply even further to different SLA goals. So let's say you have a time to resolution SLA. For critical incidents, you want that time to resolution to be no more than 2 hours. And for everything else, you want it to be, let's say, 40 hours. And then service requests are within 24 hours. So when you're building your SLA, you can use Jira query language, again, to say if this is a critical incident, then the SLA should be 2 hours. If this is a service request, then the SLA should be 24 hours. And then all remaining should be 40 hours. So you have the full latitude with the way you set this up. You do have different calendars that you can designate and configure to be used as well. We have a couple sample ones built in for you, but you can define your own calendar if you like. So if you are a 9-to-5 shop, or a 24/7 shop, or 24/5, or work out of different time zones, you can build those calendars and apply them to your SLAs. And the way that works is, like, say you have a 9-to-5 calendar and a ticket comes in at 4 p.m. It'll tick against an SLA for 1 hour, and then it'll stop. And then it'll start again at 9 a.m. the following day. The SLA will start ticking again. Whereas if you have a 24-hour calendar, that SLA will continuously tick until it breaches, or until the SLA is satisfied. So moving on to the next feature, we've talked a little bit about this already, but it's so powerful, and you can do so much with it that I want to spend some time talking about it here as well, and that is automation. So there are a lot of repetitive tasks that your support team does, and this is one area that your team is going to find just immense value as they start using Jira Service Desk. So let's add a rule here to show you just how powerful automation can be. So a rule is made up of 3 simple criteria: when, if, and then, right? Those are the 3 building blocks of every automation rule. So to begin, let's pick one of these many templates that we provide. Let's use the one that we talked about before just to make it consistent. So update when a linked issue status changes. This is a rule that you can use to transition an issue when a linked issue's status is updated. So this kind of rule is ideal for someone who uses Jira Software and Jira Service Desk, because it will update a Service Desk ticket if the linked Jira Software ticket is resolved, in our example before. So for example, when we talk about our when, if, then logic, we would say when a linked issue is transitioned, if the linked issue status matches resolved, then close the Jira Service Desk issue. And maybe you also want to add something to the then clause that says add a comment to let the customer know. And of course, you can create custom rules as well. So the best part about this is you can really, really configure your rules exactly how you want them. So you can have when criteria that considers issue creation, issue status change, when a comment is added, when a linked issue is transitioned, when an SLA is at risk of breaching, or when an SLA breaches. These are some examples of some of the when criteria. If is really when you use Jira query language for the most part. So if is searching for, if the issue matches this set of criteria, then go ahead and apply the then clause. And the then clause can be things like transitioning an issue, editing an issue, sending an email, sending a notification to a specific user. It can trigger a webhook even. There's a whole host of options that you can do. So you really have a ton of flexibility. Automation, I would say, is, because it's so powerful, it can be one of the more complex things to learn about Jira Service Desk. But once you understand the breadth of its scope, it really is a game changer for your service teams. So I encourage you to play around with this during your trial, maybe after you've set up a project and gotten familiar with some other basics to understand at least the core concepts of how this works. And we do have several default rules, so we can, give you templates to play around with to make it easier to learn. But there's just a ton of potential in this automation tool. And again, there's no scripting involved, there's no programming involved. It's very simple, it's very user-friendly. It's simply going through, configuring the rules the way you need them, saving them, and then they just apply from there on out. You can disable them, of course, but it's very, very easy to just build an automation rule, have it up and running in a matter of minutes. So once you decide on Jira Service Desk as your support tool, you can start inviting your team members. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Sandeep here. That invite just went out, and Sandeep now has been invited as an agent to work in this project. So we make it very simple and easy to get the project up and running. Again, the documentation is always a good place to go if you have more technical questions. If you're in the middle of your trial, or you're getting ready to start one after today's demo, I highly recommend creating a few different projects so that you can see how to set it up, how to configure it, and also how to share data or link information across various projects as well. And one more thing that I would really highly recommend is evaluate with somebody. See what it's like to send an issue over to somebody else. See what it's like to, send an issue over to Jira Software if you are in a shop that uses Jira Software. Evaluating with other people really lets you fully understand more of the potential of what Jira Service Desk can do for your teams. So we've gone over all the sidebar options here. So I'm going to go ahead and transition to wrap things up for us today. So we are getting a little short on time, but I just wanted to recap a little bit about what we talked about today and review a few things with everybody. So I covered a couple different use cases that hopefully gave you a good overview of Jira Service Desk and its capabilities. One of them was around the customer portal, making it easy for end users to ask for help. It's all driven by search. Search either points them to the request they need or to a help article. Being able to put knowledge base articles in line is really just deferring requests and giving answers right away, so saving time for your support team. So that was use case number one. The second use case makes IT more effective in the way that they deliver support. So from streamlining ticket management with dynamic queues to setting up dynamic SLAs to automation rules that streamline some of those repetitive tasks, you saw a lot of different features in the agent view. To get more information, check out some of the articles we have on our IT website called IT Unplugged. We have a lot of best practices articles up there for you. And finally, we went through reporting for managers and for setup for administrators. And again, while there's really so much information here, hopefully you saw that it's pretty straightforward, and we try to make it easy for an admin to go through each category, set it up, and be able to deploy their service desk by creating their project for an IT team or for a support team or any type of team that could field service requests. Also, I just want to encourage you again to access the resources we've placed in the webinar. There are 3 links over there. All of those are great starting points. And just to remind you again, if you haven't started an evaluation, go ahead and click on that Try It Free button. It sets you up with an evaluation where you can create your own environment and get you up and running really within a matter of minutes. Just a quick reminder about pricing. Again, 1 to 3 agents is what we call our starter license, and that is a total of $10 per month. And once you bump up beyond 3 agents, that's when the kind of normal pricing kicks in. So 3 agents is $10 a month. 4 agents is $20 per agent per month. So it does jump from $10 to $80 once you hit 4 agents, but we still are quite competitive if you compare us to any other service desk solution out there. Again, customers are completely free, completely unlimited, and then every agent that you add beyond 15, the price per agent starts to go down.